Our first presentation of the afternoon will come from the state of California, the University Community Information Initiatives with Neil Richmond and Alan Toy. Alan, did you bring more cookies? He brought cookies for the picture. Treated everyone to cookies.
I hope you liked them. Did they let you eat finally?
I have my memorial cookie right here, Alan.
Okay, good. Well, I'm very delighted to share our work with all of you here today, especially the panel. We'd like to specifically tell you about two of our long-standing projects, LILA, Living Independently in Los Angeles, and NKLA, Neighborhood Knowledge Los Angeles. These initiatives use online GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, mapping tools to build stronger communities, each in their own way. And the innovation in these projects is not the use of GIS. Our uniqueness, we believe...
Based on our experience at UCLA, we've concluded that public universities can really bring a lot to establishing community information systems. They can really minimize the cost of doing these systems by leveraging research funding, by really tapping into the technical capacity, hardware, infrastructure, and most importantly, socially committed, high-tech young people who really want to make a difference in their community. We also think public universities can and are very interested in archiving digital data and keeping that very important historic information, as well as analyzing that for long-term trends that it can influence and help shape public policy. Public universities that are land-grant institutions have, I think, some particular special commitments, and those special commitments are towards educating work, envisioning of NKLA. The state, I'm very happy, the state legislature passed a bill signed by the governor that gives us tax delinquency information for every county in LA. So our code enforcement work that we did in LA will now be able to spread throughout the state. And mostly, I'm very proud to state that we built the entire statewide community information system for $250,000. And so we think that's something that's very replicable. Finally, the Fannie Mae Foundation has just hired us to design an RFP for a nationwide website that's modeled on our neighborhood knowledge projects. And the submission for that RFP is on Friday. And so we're glad to have influenced the future evolution of KnowledgePlex. And it will be the nation's first community information platform in this way. Time and again, we've seen this combination of public data and real neighborhood knowledge produce results, not just insights, but real on-the-ground results. That's why we believe our model for partnerships that include public university, that include local government, private businesses, a wide variety of even local individual users, has really been so innovative. And that's why we believe as well that we're being emulated in ways that helping other people use information technologies to build stronger American communities. Thanks.
Thank you. Question? Ed Doran.
You anticipated one of my questions I was going to ask in accusatory fashion.
Please.
Whether you were exploiting poor, easily exploitable graduate students to collect these data.
Only
you answered that question by saying that no, they were socially committed and technically
they get
we don't know they're being exploited.
It's intrinsic reward.
But I am a little bit confused about the relationship between what you do and the kind of information that I presume is available through city sources, and I would assume on city-based websites. Mm-hmm. Can you help me understand that relationship?
Sure, I'm glad to do that. The City of LA has an amazing GIS system. You can get all the property information that you can want. What they haven't done for you is assemble information that pinpoints disinvestment and deterioration. Cities use their website to market themselves. That's not a way that they market themselves. This was a system built up to promote doing change in those communities by an outside entity who saw bringing that data together as being very important. You want to add, Alan?
And the Department on Disability, which is a partner of ours for the City of Los Angeles, has a lot of information about services and so forth for people with disabilities. But I hazard to guess that they have no information like Lila has on how do you contact somebody who knows how to travel and get disability-related accommodations? How do you contact people who are interested in putting together a fencing club of wheelchair users or scuba diving clubs? How do you get an informal network of family support members together to talk about communal needs? And these are the kinds of things that people are mapping on Lila that come out of their own grassroots knowledge. So it's the combination of the top-down data and the grassroots that is really our innovation.
Just to make it short, government's responsible to do public interest information. We do information for specific interested publics. okay? People that want to engage with applications for that to engage in community change.
David Osborne.
It must be extremely difficult to measure the effectiveness of an innovation like yours because, well, you don't, a lot of the people who are using it are outside of your institution, outside of government, in communities. But do you have any data about results?
But the result I'm most proud of is the fact that we helped really reshape the city's approach to code enforcement in the city of LA. And this is something they didn't really want to look at. They said, oh, that's just an East LA problem. It's just a South LA problem. And I've been working a lot in the community, and I said, you know, all these slum properties, they have tremendous tax delinquency against them. They have all, and I started working these, I'm working downstream on these buildings and in these neighborhoods. Let's collect that information and present that. We mapped it, and I mapped it for CDCs and nonprofits to do development in the community. It turns out that the council offices began to use it because everyone was complaining about nuisance properties in their neighborhood. As they began to do it, it reshaped public policy. They said we need a whole new approach to code enforcement. And with that, they said they passed a new law. The LA Times called the law that we helped shape that policy the most important housing reform in the city of LA's history. And then they turned to us and said, you guys are the data experts. Develop a system where people can use Palm Pilots in the field to automatically go out and do these inspections, automatically then sending that from our servers to your servers, so that's available overnight in English and Spanish, so we can create accountability. So they have both the diagnostic system through NKLA and a data input system through the handhelds that have really reshaped. So it's not NKLA alone that's created the $200 million improvement, but the fact that we shaped that policy and gave them the tools to effectively implement that program that I think I'm most proud of as a calculable effect.
Just with regard to the Lila project in terms of making a difference, we're finding that, for instance, I don't know if on this coast you've heard about the Rancho Los Amigos hospital issue of the county shutting down a major rehabilitation hospital because of lack of funding. We've been able, through the Lila project, to galvanize community support for that hospital. The Lila site itself is where people exchange information about activities, about how to advocate, how to write, how to communicate, and so forth. And to the extent that this is taking independent living services into a 21st century construct, we have gotten requests from independent living centers across California to please come to their communities and their counties and replicate what we're doing in Los Angeles. So I think that's a measure of success. It's kind of, like you said, it's hard to actually calibrate.
Did you keep the hospital open?
Excuse me?
The struggle is continuing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, La Lucha continues.
Elizabeth Shore.
Given that a lot of the people that you're trying to reach with the information that you have are not necessarily computer literate or have access to computers, when you started out, did you think about whether there were other ways to reach those populations, or did you start out with, you know, what can we do with a computer, with this technology? What can we do with it? Or did you start with?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of contact with all the community technology centers, and they're scattered throughout the area. And what they said to us was, we train people how to use it, but there isn't really the information, the content online that people are interested in finding out about. It's mostly how can you buy a Lexus. It's a lot of it's marketing information. How can you get a date? Poor people in poor communities have gotten dates long before the internet. You know, they didn't need to go there. But they do want to know if the roof on their apartment building is about to collapse and affect them, their lives and their children's. That's a reason for low-income people after a hard day's work to come online. The other thing is we worked a lot with young people as intermediaries with their families because they're tech savvy and they use the computers at school to help their families answer questions.
And with regard to the disability population, people with disabilities use computers less than the general population as a rule, but they use it twice as much as the general population to seek information about day-to-day needs to help them live independently. And so they really are already using the internet as a source for information. And what we wanted to do is take the World Wide Web and make it narrow and very, very deep and really specific to a geographic community so that we could help this community coalesce around its particular needs and to share with each other what they know.
These questions may be difficult for you to answer, but they're also questions that we face as a committee.
Sure.
This committee has had a history of recognizing and saluting programs in which the internet or information systems have been put to good use by governmental bodies, stretching back to ComSat in New York City. we're going to be faced, when these hearings are over, with the question of how to evaluate your program in the context of other programs such as that and CityStat and others, and in the context of at least two other applications or two other winners here, finalists here. You heard one this morning. There's going to be another one coming. How can you help us from your perspective, how to evaluate those?
I have two answers to that. One is, we are not developing an information system to manage a program or administer something. We're creating information partnerships that work directly with grassroots and community groups, that work directly with, we are brokering, we're information entrepreneurs. That is the important model. So our perspective is different than just a GIS system that's built by a local government. The second part of it involves with what I would think, and it sounds a little grandiose, but I'm going to say, reinventing the public university. Realizing that information technologies is a way to get the kind of assets and data and research that we have more broadly available to the community. You don't have to come up to our hill and go to one of our libraries in order for us to work with you as a community member.
Can you expand on that last point? That's quite interesting.
Well, you know, there's a long history. I mentioned land-grant institutions, goes back to Abraham Lincoln, as many of you probably know, that we have a commitment to working with working communities and working people. And that's seen through the kind of agricultural extension programs that our country are famous for. We see our information technology work as kind of reinventing that concept, using IT to work in urban communities, getting them the information that they need for survival and improving the welfare of their families.
And one other item I think I would like to add is that our projects are always two-way streets. We are building a connectivity that allows people in the community to give as much as to get. And the simplicity in which we allow them to use our tools to create information for sharing as well as getting information is what the differences are, I think.
That's good. Yes, Carl.
It goes back to a David Osborne question, but also just to the heart of it. You say that in your application that 6,000 users have used this system more than once. And do you have a sense of who those people are and how they break down in terms of where they're from, socioeconomic backgrounds and status, and how many people, say, have used the system 10 times or 20 times or 30 times?
Yeah,
could you
we keep all of that data.
We do, and I would say for Lila, it's a combination of people. It started out being people over $70,000 income and people under 10. And now it's filling out in the middle a bit more, but it's definitely slanted from 40,000 and below, especially under 20,000 are the users for Lila. The 70,000 used it when they first heard about it. Oh yeah, okay, this is a government thing. Let's sign on and see what they're doing. But now the user base is definitely expanding. It's all over the county. We know that. We're tracking them by zip code now, and we know that most of the people who come to our site, for instance, are looking for housing data about how they can live in the community in affordable and accessible housing. With NKLA, we're able to see that city government is using our sites a lot. Somebody calls the council office and says, I have a problem with this property. They go right to our site, and in a matter of seconds, they know everything there is to know about it because we're the first time anybody's ever put all that data together, so they can respond to their constituents that way. But it's also community groups and housing advocates and nonprofit developers and so forth who are very clearly using those sites.
Yeah, the use is about 20% nonprofits, 20% governments, really kind of around the clock, 20% private sector, 20% individual users, overwhelmingly in low-income communities. And the reason it's overwhelmingly in low-income communities is that's the kind of data and information NKLA is making available. Almost everyone heard about us, word of mouth. I mean, we've been covered by the LA Times and others, but it's really kind of word of mouth. Take a look at this website. Yeah. That's really been the main mechanism for dissemination.
And the user who'd be a repeat user who'd be there 10, 20, 30 times, that
well,
would be
here's
the government?
Here's some examples. Nonprofits that are looking to do rehabilitation projects for housing. One group invented said, people, single-family homeowners who haven't paid their taxes are likely to be having problems with their loans. They may end up in loan default. They may be dealing with predatory lenders. Let's get them affirmative assistance and help them with housing counseling and refinancing before they end up in loan trouble and before they lose their houses. So people are always inventing applications for this information in very surprising ways. And that's what I think what's kind of exciting about it is really